Most writers want to secretly rewrite their first book. After some time has passed, when they read their book, they feel like, I could have written this better. The characters could have been much more realistic. The plot could have been, faster. The descriptions could have been richer. But strangely, I don't feel that way about my first book, Our Mother's Will. In fact, I feel that if I were to attempt to rewrite it today, it would become a much worse book. Let me explain why. I guess it's a very human tendency to want to, rewrite the past with the benefit of hindsight and time. And why not just in books but also in life? Certainly, after some time passes, you are wiser, you have had more experience, you have heard feedback from your friends, from your family, you have had some early reviews come in, and if not rewrite the first book, there's definitely a sort of wistful regret which says, if I had to write my book today, here's what I would do differently. But I gently disagree, because I believe that the first book is a time capsule. It is an accurate representation of your skills as a writer, your temperament, your imagination, and your pacing and everything. Basically put it all together, and it's an accurate representation of you at that certain point of time in life. Whatever you do, you can never get that back again. You can only get better, you can only progress, become a different type of writer gradually. I don't think any writer remains the same all throughout their life. There's something special when a first book can capture all of that, and it's like a frozen moment in time, a frozen snapshot of your capabilities and your imagination at a certain point of time in life, and you're never going to get that back. The first book captured, the anxieties I had, the imagination I had, the way I thought stories should move, and all of that is now frozen in my first book. As most of you know, I am currently in the final or not so final stages of rewriting my second book, and when I think back and look upon the past, I am a much better, much more structured. I think about structure more deliberately. I think about character development more consciously. I think about narrative, I think about tension, I think about the rhythm of a particular scene more deeply, and in many ways I'm a completely different writer now, and that's exactly why the first book feels very precious to me. There's also something that's captured in everyone's first books, I believe, that can never be replicated. I call it the beginner's magic. See, when you're a beginner, you don't know enough to endlessly worry and curtail your own creativity. You are not fully aware of the boundaries yet. You haven't internalized the so-called rules of storytelling. You're not thinking about market expectations, genre expectation. You're not thinking about reader reviews. You're not thinking about perception. You're not even thinking about what the publishers want. You're genuinely excited by a story, and you're trying to write it down to the best of your capabilities. And I believe there's a certain kind of freedom that newness gives you. Is almost hard or impossible to replicate later on in life. There's a certain innocence, there's a certain freshness, there's a certain rawness that a beginner has. In fact, when I read, few pages of this book, I feel amazed basically by the scale of the world building, by the complexity of the plot, by the sheer audacity of what I was attempting to do with it, because I really did not know any better. No canvas was too huge, no idea was too bold, and no story too ambitious, because I was leading with imagination and not calculation. Honestly, I would never want to lose that, and I remember something very clearly from the time when I was writing Our Mother's Will. There were days when I absolutely had no idea what I was doing. No roadmap, no perfect outline. Sometimes I would just sit down and, in a maniacal inspired session, just write down the next chapter, simply because even I wanted to know what happens next. And strangely, that curiosity carried the plot forward at times. Sometimes it was a bit too much, so I had to go back, edit out a lot of the stuff that I had written, because sometimes maybe that magic is important to at least bring out the first book into the world. To be blissfully unaware of so many things is sometimes maybe working in your favor. Another thing about writing your first book is that you do not know yet the various ways in which it can go wrong. You haven't yet experienced rejection. You haven't read reviews that really dissect your work or misinterpret your work. You haven't encountered, yet the strange economics of this world called publishing. So there's no fear. You are simply exploring the world. There's no need to protect yourself, and that exploration can lead to surprising creative choices. And these are the choices that you might, later on become very wary of as you become aware about more rules, more expectations on you. Another interesting thing that happens is distance from a certain piece of work along with time creates a different point of view. When you create something, you are obviously tied to it emotionally. You are very attached. Every sentence feels personal. Every paragraph feels, absolutely necessary. There's no way you would cut it, even though there may be 10 different ways of doing it without that certain paragraph being in place. And every critique feels intensely personal. As time passes by, you do not feel so strongly about that piece of work. It is still your work. It is still tied to your name, but it's just a snapshot of your younger self. That's all that it is. It doesn't define you, it doesn't constrain you, it doesn't, put labels on you. It is not a death sentence. And when you start to see it like that, you stop asking yourself, is it perfect? Because let's be honest, perfection is impossible to achieve. And who in the world, by the way, defines perfection? And I believe that's a more practical and generous way of looking back at something that you have created with so much love, so much attention, and of course, so much discipline in place. A first book is the foundation. It is not just a creative project, it's a proof of concept. It is proof that you tried, you started something, you finished something. It exists in the world for people to buy, download. It is a proof that you're able to, have an idea, work with it for months on end, construct it into something workable, something that works on paper, and put it in words, and then just release it into the world without any fear, without any hesitation. Now that might sound simple, but I want you to take a moment and just reflect at the scale of this. You have had a random idea and you trusted that idea enough to create a story around it. You have written chapters upon chapters, you have written so many pages, you have balanced your day job with this, and at the end of the day, that work is out into the world. It is no small matter. Anyone who's tried to write a book knows this. You've gone through phases of excitement, you've gone through phases of doubt, you've gone through phases of self-doubt, you've gone through phases where you felt that this story is simply not working out, it is going to collapse, and yet somehow you kept going. And when you finish that first book, something changes in you. You are no longer the person who has a dream of writing a book. You're the person who's written a book. And that psychological shift is enormous. It is massive. There's also a myth in writing culture and probably in the world of publishing that your debut has to be perfect. More so with the traditional world, I believe that a debut is a death sentence. So it has to be perfect. But in today's world, where there are so many tools, where there's so many alternative ways of bringing your creativity to life, no book, not just a debut, no book is a death sentence. It is felt that maybe the first book defines you forever. But if you look at the careers of most writers, none of it is true actually. Most authors grow into their voice, the strongest voice, only over time, because it is a continuous exploration of that voice, even for the author himself or herself. Their early books are stepping stones. Creative work, seldom arrives perfectly formed. It is always going to be a work in progress. It is always going to be under construction, whether it's your second book, whether it's your first book, or whether it's your 10th book. It's evolution. It's evolution in you as a writer and also as an individual. And as you gather more experiences, of course, the output that you produce will be different. Every book teaches you something different. Your first book teaches you how to, finish. That finishing is a victory in itself. Even though there may be no stadium applause, there may be no, sudden dramatic moment where the world, suddenly recognizes you and pats you on the back. Most of the time, you simply type that, last letter and you're done. You're done, finished. And you sit there for a moment and take a deep breath and you're done. And you realize, you know what, I actually finished this. And it is that moment that matters more than most people ever realize. Because finishing a book is really about talent alone. It's about persistence. It's about, the commitment to continuously work on improving a certain piece of work till the time you're adequately satisfied with it and are ready to, bring it out in front of the world. That is serious persistence. That is serious commitment. Of course, your second book teaches you how to improve. Your third book teaches you how to, trust your instincts. And remember, neither the second book nor the third book would be there out in the world if the first book did not exist. So that slightly flawed first book of yours is not a mistake. It's a stepping stone. There's also something deeply satisfying about, having a physical book out into the world. There's something that you can touch, you can feel, you can flip the pages, you can see your name on the cover, you can see the blurb at the back, you can see the price written, you can see the publisher's logo. I mean, this is evidence that you can transform an idea into reality. And how wonderful it is to, just think for a moment that all of it that's here was once a fragment of your imagination. You've literally dreamt this to existence. And once you've done that, the next book becomes psychologically much, much easier. So if you're working on your first book now and you're endlessly worried whether it's good enough, I hope this video reaches you. I hope this can act as a kind of reassurance for you. You are at the right place. Whatever you're doing is going to be okay. And this is not make or break. There is no dream debut. It's just the first step in a journey of 1,000 steps. That is the literary life. And your first book doesn't have to be flawless. It doesn't have to be a masterpiece. It has one job, and that job is to simply exist, come out, to allow the others after it to come out, to allow yourself to see what it feels to have your words come out in the form of a physical artifact that exists in the physical world out here. So it doesn't have to be flawless. It doesn't have to be, transformative. Its job also is to turn you into the kind kind of person who can write the second book. That's it. And if it does that, then it has already succeeded. Because at the end of the day, writing is not a single achievement. It is a lifelong practice. It is a conversation between who you were when you first started writing and who you're becoming with every passing day, with every new piece of work you're releasing, with every new book that's coming out. And in that conversation, the first book will always hold a special place because it was the very beginning.